Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. And today I just got done talking with John Moyer, a hypnotist who primarily focuses on his YouTube channel today as his primary way of reaching his audiences. But he's a fascinating person. And the two things I want you to get out of this today as an O5O'er is information and inspiration. The inspiration is John's ability to overcome any kind of limited beliefs that he may have had through a career of ups and downs and very illustrative career, and to continuously reinvent himself and find success. The other thing is he's offering you free the free ability to do that yourself through his YouTube channel at YouTube/John Moyer. And it's really a terrific channel. There's a lot of good self-hypnosis out there on YouTube for free that I've talked about before. Please like and share the video. Please give me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts so that I can hit more people and pass on this important information. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Over 50 Starting Over. I am Barry Edwards, and today I am with John Moyer. And John, I got to find the notes just to give you a quick introduction. John is a professional hypnotist and YouTube creator of hypnosis and meditation content for his 230,000 subscribers. 230,000, that's right. His journey began as a screenwriter of independent films and 25 years as a professional stand-up comedian. And feeling like his life hit a wall, divorced, a single dad, stuck in a loop of bad relationships, and struggling financially, John realized he needed to change something. So that's when he discovered the power of the mind through meditation and hypnosis. So I just got to interject here. I'm very excited to talk to you about this. This is a subject matter we've covered a lot here on this podcast, so I'm really looking forward to this. You got a heck of a backstory. A retired stand-up comedian and trained in the art of stage hypnosis. Everything took off with when you trained as a stage hypnotist, everything took off with a radical shift for the better. He began performing hypnosis shows across the U.S. for colleges, high-end corporate events, and as a headlining entertainer for the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. Meditation and self-hypnosis rewired John's thinking for the better. Gone were the limited beliefs and behaviors that held him back. He met and married his soulmate. Is it Rochelle or Rachel?
It is Rochelle.
Rochelle, yeah. Joseph, former Mrs. Utah and first runner-up for Mrs. America. That's when John had the idea to combine his film and video production skills with his experience of hypnosis. He created a YouTube channel offering content to help other people tap into the power of their mind as well. And in just 3 years after launching, John received YouTube's Silver Play Button Award for hitting 100,000 subscribers, which he doubled in less than a year after. Currently, John dedicates himself full-time to the YouTube channel, sharing his passion with as many people as possible. Welcome aboard, John.
Thank you,
really
Barry.
Great to talk to you.
It is good. And it made me realize I need to actually update that bio because it's 270,000 subscribers now, but it goes by so fast. Who can keep track?
It does. It was probably 230 like last week.
Yeah.
I've been on your channel quite a bit the last couple of weeks, and I thought I'd double check that one. But yeah, good for you. The success is amazing. I think your journey is amazing. You seem to always be one to lean into show business.
Yeah.
You went to school for such, and you wrote screenplays. I don't think I had it in that bio, but I've heard you talk about that. You wrote screenplays.
Yeah. Well, I went to, my degree was in theater and film and in college with a screenwriting emphasis. So, that was kind of my passion, was to write stuff. And of course, when I was in film school at the time, this was before video was even a concept. If you were to make a student film, you had to do it on actual film, and that was really expensive, and the college charged for all, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, well, hey, I could just write. I don't actually have to make a film. I could just write film. So that's what I got my my degree, and I got a couple posters on the wall of the the independent movies that I made back there. And but when I graduated, I was doing stand-up comedy because it all seemed kind of be in the same wheelhouse, right? I enjoyed comedy movies. I was writing comedy movies, so why not do some stand-up comedy as well? And that's kind of how it all, took off for me, initially, which then led me down the road to stage hypnosis and then to hypnosis where I am now.
Let me ask you about the comedy for a minute. I love listening to podcasts with comedians on there, that good ones that I like when they talk about the craft itself, because they always say, you can't go to school for this thing.
No, it's true. You can't.
Yeah, you just got to get out there and learn and rewrite and improve, find out what catches and all that. What you did it for a long time, right?
Yeah, I did it I started in I think it was 92, and then I retired, I guess officially. I did my last official stand-up comedy show was a corporate event. I think it was 2016 or 2017.
Wow,
maybe.
You did it for a while.
I did it for a long time, and it was weird because that was, comedy was in my DNA. That was part of who I was. That's how I saw the world. And the thing is for me, when you're in college, when you're learning screenwriting, they teach you that all drama is conflict. So there's not going to be any Home Alone if there's no kid left alone and no burglars trying to break in the house, right? You've got to have that conflict to be able to create the drama and interesting story. Well, that's kind of the way that I looked at, stand-up comedy. It was like all drama is comedy for me. So the more dysfunctional my life was, the more drama, the more that I had to vent about on stage. And I was kind of one of those angry ranting comics.
I love that.
But of course, the flip side of that was, maybe I could be funny on stage, but personally, I was kind of a very unhappy, bitter, angry, individual. And the thing that happened is once I made that shift inside of me, when I looked at myself personally, I'm like, man, I'm just not happy. I'm chaos and drama, and I don't know where I'm going. When I made that shift inside of me, suddenly I didn't feel the need to, be ranting on stage or making jokes anymore. Kind of the analogy that I use is if it was, 12 years ago, if I was in the gym and I saw like a really morbidly obese person in the gym, I'd be like, oh man, that's irony. There's a dichotomy there, there's a joke there. Now, if that's the case, I go, well, good for them, man. They're trying to make a difference, so it was almost like a switch just got turned off for me, where I'm like, I just don't see the world in that, in that way.
Was it like, did you hit a bottom? Like, was it an event?
Yeah. It was just a case of, I guess I would have been mid 40s, I guess at the time, and going through, the divorce, and then the nature of stand-up comedy, the business of stand-up comedy radically changed in the early to mid 2000s, where it wasn't necessarily what it had been, the business model 20 years, 10 years, but, previous to that. So, struggling, doing a lot of, out West, there's a lot of people that link a lot of one-nighters together, and you're driving 12 hours to some cowboy bar in Montana, and there was just a lot of it. I was just unhappy in the situation, and I'm going, where am I going? What else am I going to do, from here? I wanted to be creative. That was my passion, but I just kind of felt like that, the road, with what I was doing on stand-up comedy was just coming to, a dead end. And the event that kind of happened for me, other than just being, unhappy personally and professionally, but the catalyst situation was, I was performing. There was a event that I was doing, and there was a bunch of different acts, different activities happening throughout the day. So I did my stand-up comedy show, and the venue that I was in, maybe it was maybe half, 3/4 full. It was okay. But what I didn't realize was after me, they were having a stage hypnotist. And so I stuck around. I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch this, the stage hypnotist. Now, I'd always been fascinated, in the mind.
Yeah.
But of course, the thing that there was always this contention between comedians and hypnotists, right? Because comedians will look at themselves as, we're original, we're writing this material, we're very unique. And then they just look at the hypnotist as like, it's just a gimmick. You know, and I can't tell you how many times I would have performed at a comedy club, and you know, maybe the event or the club was half full, three-quarters full through the weekend or whatever, and they go, oh yeah, we had the hypnotist last weekend, we sold out every show, in fact we had to add another show, right? The comics were always so angry at that, right? Because
Yeah.
people would just show up to see the hypnotist, but you know, they couldn't get them to see
I
the
didn't
guys.
know that.
Yeah, that would happen all the time, and it would drive comics nuts.
Oh, I wanted to throw in just real quick. You're from
Yeah.
Utah. You mentioned about
Yes.
being out when
Yeah.
touring out west. People should know that.
Yeah. I
Okay.
grew up in New Jersey, but I've lived in Utah for the better part of my life.
Okay.
I'm a Utah now. So I see this hypnotist perform, and now when the venue was like half full, three-quarters full for me, it was like standing room only for the hypnotist. And then of course people, you know, everybody flocked to the stage, you know, to be hypnotized. And then of course after the show, he was selling videos of the show, and he was selling his CDs for weight loss and stop smoking. And people are just throwing money hand over fist, you know, at this guy to get. I'm like, man, I could do that. You know, that's the kind of cliche. I could do that. Because I mean, I had the ability to be on stage. I had the ability to interact with people. I just needed to figure out how to learn hypnosis, right?
Right. You know what? I just had a thought though. Don't you think that's not unlike a musician though? A musician that could break through and then sell the tickets, because they're not writing new material all the time.
Yeah.
They can, you know, catch a few things that get well known, and you know, that's their act for years and years to come.
Well, yeah, and this is kind of what I say about stage hypnosis. I go, it's kind of like cheeseburgers, right? There's McDonald's, there's Wendy's, there's Burger King, there's In-N-Out, there's all these, and everybody's making cheeseburgers, but everybody's got their own kind of unique variation on the cheeseburger, and people are going to gravitate to, you know, what they like. So what I did from there is I talked to a little bit to the hypnotist afterwards. In fact, he and I wound up becoming really good friends. He's been a mentor and a friend to me. But I remember going back to one of my stand-up comedy buddies, and I go, dude, I'm going to start doing hypnosis. And he's like, no,
You're a
do not. Like,
sellout.
he's screaming at me through the phone not to do this, right? So what I wound up doing is I wound up training in the hypnosis. And the advantage that I had was I was able to go to the bookers and the managers and the agents and the event planners, all the people that I had worked with doing stand-up comedy. And I went back and I said, man, I've got something completely different. And I was able to immediately hit the ground running right away, getting booking and getting events. And pretty quickly that escalated to, it went from, you know, driving the 12 hours to do the Cowboy Bar in Montana while they're putting you up at a Motel 6, to being flown, you know, first class to do high-end corporate events.
Nice move.
Yeah, around the world, you know, with, you know, to, you know, Royal Caribbean Cruise Line and all of that. So, and it just, and I was like, I was enjoying what I was doing. I'm like, holy cow, I was, you know, in, you know, what I considered the sweet spot. I completely transformed, you know, my life professionally, which came also personally too, because all the things that I was realizing about hypnosis and meditation, I'm applying that to myself. And then suddenly, you know, my personal life is changing. You know, I feel, you know, I'm happier, I'm less stressed, I'm more well-adjusted. So it benefited me all, you know, all the way around.
And that was a pretty quick process, wasn't it? The whole transition.
Yeah, you know, it was basically probably, you know, maybe 3 or 4 years completely, you know, to go from one to the other. And then of course, you know, that was that version of reinventing myself. But then the other additional reinvention that came with that was, you know, hypnotists were always selling their, you know, their wares after the show, the CDs of, well, but then all of a sudden people stopped having CD players. CDs were becoming obsolete. So now, you know, I'm in these, you know, internet groups with other hypnotists, and they're like, people aren't buying CDs. What should we do now? And then there was this big debate. We can put them on flash drives, and we can sell flash drives after the shows with MP3 files and everything. And I just went, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. Instead of just putting them on flash drives, you know, maybe I'll make it all digital. I'll just tell people go to my website, and, you know, they can buy them from there. And I thought, well, maybe if I put some on YouTube, people will, you know, kind of hear a sampling of what I do, and then they may go to my website and buy them. Didn't even occur to me that people were actually using YouTube as the platform. to listen to this stuff. And
I
I
know,
wasn't even,
unfortunately, it would be so nice if you could put your own stuff behind your own wall, as you were saying, on your website, but it's just the landslide of activity went in that direction.
yeah, but it was also, I kind of understand what you're saying. But yet, because of the YouTube partner program, I was able to monetize, my YouTube channel, and that of course has been very advantageous. So, and I wasn't even paying attention to what was going on YouTube. I just put the stuff on there, and then it was like a few months later, I'm going back and checking YouTube, and I had one program that had really accelerated and took off, and that was creating traction for my channel and attention for my channel. And
Nice.
that's kind of how that all happened. And then and then of course, when the lockdown and everything happened, obviously there were no shows, but my YouTube channel was doing quite well, and I was able to continue to put time into that. So creating that online content is what I dedicate myself to, full time. And
Yeah.
it's one of these things where I go, look, I never imagined that I would be where I'm at. Physically, if you create that physical image, I never imagined it. The emotional image, of course, yeah, because I'm doing what I love to do.
Right.
I'm passionate about it. I'm being able to benefit people, and I get to kind of be my own person, in that regard. The things that I've always wanted to do, be creative, benefit people, kind of be artistic, and being able to provide for myself and my family. And but I tell people, I go, look, if I can do it, anybody can. Because when people think of things like YouTube and anything on the internet, it's always maybe they look at it as a younger generational thing. And but there's something there for everybody. It's
Yeah.
just somebody getting out of their head, telling themselves the story, I'm too old, or I can't do it, or whatever the case may be.
It's very true, but there's also just so much out there. It seems like everybody and his brother is doing it today. And I mean, I go on YouTube all the time. I love YouTube. Obviously got a channel. I've had a channel for many, many years. And but boy, I go on there and it's like, I can't find anything to watch. It's kind of like buying, having cable with 250 channels. There's nothing on. But you just got to find your right algorithms and get into that stuff. There's a lot of things I want to ask you about. I would like to ask you about how did you find the training for hypnosis? How long did that take? How do you quantify how good it is compared to someone else's training? Let's start there.
What I initially did because I just was interested in stage hypnosis. So I went through, there was an individual who put on, a 3-day stage hypnosis seminar that you could participate in. And it really is, it's kind of a crash course, because you're not going to, figure everything out. But, you're getting a brief, we're going to spend some time on how to do an induction. We're going to spend some time on how to structure skits and everything. And I had enough of, I guess, laid a groundwork for the foundation that I said, okay, now I'm just going to go try and do this. So what I started to do, there was a woman I was dating at the time. She had kids, and then so her daughter's friends would come over, right? And I was like hypnotizing, these 17-year-old kids, at least trying that out, thinking, well, I'm just here in a house with people that I know, so it's it's all good. Or and then it was just a few other, like I go to some other friends. I go, hey, listen, you want to get some people together at your house on Friday night? I want to practice my, my hypnosis. Cool. And then what it led up to was I had another buddy of mine that had access to a theater, and he said, hey, why don't we'll do a hypnosis show. We'll rent the theater out for the night for a couple of $100, and we'll charge tickets. And that's when it kind of became really real for me, because I was like terrified, like people are now, they're paying money, and now I got to get up on stage and do this. But then you get up there and you do it, and it starts happening.
Let me ask you here. This is fascinating to me that you could go from a couple people in a room, do the hypnosis, which I could understand that you're more intimate with them, you're using subtleties and so on. But to go from that to a stage, you don't have eye contact. I don't understand how that works. I've never been to that. So how do you do that? How do you mass amount of people? How do you get X amount of them actually into a hypnosis trance?
Well, the way it begins is, from the moment you, as a hypnotist, the moment you're stepping on stage, you've just deserved to create rapport with the audience, deserve to make the audience feel comfortable and let them know that this is going to be a lot of fun and they're going to have a really good experience. And the days of the mysterious guy, the guy that would come out in the black cape and they wanted to be blah, that's old school stuff. I, of course, because I had the stand-up comic training, I could connect well with people. Now, the one thing that I did learn early on was that I could not be too funny up front. If I was too funny up front, if I threw in too many jokes, because the attitude of stand-up comedians are, there's a little bit of an ego there. We're a little smarter than you because we're funnier. And so I realized I kind of had to dial that back to be able to, get people to feel more comfortable. But then it's a case of letting people know that, look, when you come up here on stage, if there's a goal that you're looking to achieve, maybe there's a negative habit you want to eliminate from your life, maybe there's a positive habit you want to start implementing in your life. When you come up here and participate tonight, we're gonna make that happen for you. So you're giving people the incentive to come up on stage because they know that somehow, if they have a goal, that they can achieve it. And then, of course, you're also laying out all of the physical benefits that happen when somebody experiences hypnosis, because about 15 minutes of hypnosis is like the equivalent of like 3 to 4 hours of a deep nighttime sleep. So people feel, really good. They feel relaxed, but they can feel energized at the same time. There's all these things that happen. So you're encouraging people to come up on stage, and you get them to come up on stage. And now, of course, you are dealing, maybe you've got 20 people, there's been times that I've had 30 people on stage. So
wow.
you kind of have to move very, very quickly. It's not like when it's a one-on-one session where, there's kind of a feedback loop. You're seeing what's going on with the individual person. You can cater that, with mass hypnosis, like this, you're kind of throwing as much mud up against the wall as you can, and see what sticks, as it were. But at the same time, you also understand, the audience that you're in front of. Now, if I was in front of a group of people, that was a corporate event, my approach to how I'm going to interact with them is going to be very different than if I was with a group of high school kids or college kids. So you're kind of constantly calibrating yourself between you and the audience. And then you're obviously observing the individuals, on stage doing your thing, what to look for. And, the one thing that I learned early on was that I could never be judgmental. Do not, because I might walk in a room, go, oh, these people are going to be amazing. Or you see somebody on stage and you go, oh man, that person's going to be one of the stars of the show. Oh no, that person doesn't look like a lot's going to go on there. I'm going to probably have to, boot them off the stage. And then, of course, inevitably, sometimes it's, it's the complete opposite. So you just have to be completely neutral, and not create expectations for yourself one way or the other with people on stage. And then, there's times out of, let's say, those 30 people, you might keep 25, you might keep 20, maybe you're only keeping 15, or if you've got 20 people on stage, maybe you're keeping all 20, or you're looking for those individuals that they would say are the stars of the show, people that are legitimately, hypnotized, but at the same time, their characteristics, their personalities are really shining. Because you can have people that are, deeply hypnotized, they're really there, but they're just kind of in their own world. They're just kind of feeling good. Yeah. So
about what percentage of people can be hypnotized versus cannot be hypnotized? I've heard that talked about before.
Yeah. The thing is that we all go through hypnosis every single day. We're all, it's a natural biological operational state, of the human body. Or the human mind, rather. Now, there's different numbers that people throw around of what percentage of people can actually, be, hypnotized. We all go through it. Now, there's a difference between the people that come up on stage that, experience it, because a lot of the examples that people throw, it's like when you're driving home, and like you're lost in thought, and then all of a sudden you just pull up in the driveway. You're like, man, good
example.
100% of people go through that right now, but not 100% of people, are going to come up on stage and then, be able to
Right.
experience it. And that's not necessarily, that's because of the fact that some people might be very conscientious about, being on stage, or, you might have somebody that can be very receptive to hypnosis in a one-on-one session because it's just them and the hypnotist. Maybe it's not going to be that way, for them, when in front of a group of, a group of people. And then of course, when somebody participates on stage, obviously you prefer them to be very willing, if somebody's in resistance to it. But again, there's always weird exceptions, to that rule as well, because a few years ago,
I'm sorry, I was going to say someone faking.
Well, yeah, that
I could see that.
That can be the case. That typically happens if there's somebody on stage and, they know they're not hypnotized, they're not experiencing hypnosis, but they feel bad. Like, oh, I feel bad. I don't want the hypnotist to not know.
Yeah.
But it's like, you spot those people, what's going on, and then you allow them to leave the stage. Or typically, maybe if it's a high school kid or a university kid that just wants to be a show off, you know what to look for somebody that there's a legitimate hypnotic response versus somebody that's trying to fake being hypnotized. And there's things that I do too in the induction to deliberately kind of trip people up. And it's like, if I see that somebody gets tripped up, then I go, okay, I know that, they're not, they're not really there. But one of the weird exceptions to the rule is I was doing a corporate event. It was for a sheriff's department. This was, maybe 4 years ago. And they were kind of a rough and rowdy group. It was an interesting thing. And
where was this?
This was just in Utah.
Okay.
And it was a beautiful location. We were up in Park City, Utah. It was a great place. But
what I was trying to put together is 4 years ago, because there's been events of recent years that would make a sheriff's department in some places a tricky place to be. They are looking for training and inside things to work with.
Yeah, this was just their Christmas event. Come celebrate, and that's what this was.
Okay.
But there were a little bit of resistance. People coming up on stage. They just kind of wanted to hang back and throw back a few beers and stuff. So there's always a case, especially when you do a corporate event. I was considering this a corporate event or a private event where people are like, "Hey, Bob, you need to go up there. Bob, Bob, go up there." And then, if you're forcing Bob to go up there, if Bob doesn't really want to go up there, it's not going to be that fun. Right. But there was an individual there. She was the head of their jail, the county jail, head of their county jail. And everybody's like, I don't remember her name. Let's just say it was Brenda. Brenda, you need to go up there. You need to go up there. Now, normally, if you're forcing Brenda to go up there, I would not, take that kind of a volunteer because it's forced. But this is one of those shows where it was a little sparse trying to get people. So here you have this woman that comes up, a woman that you would not want to mess with. She was a very tough individual. Yeah. And she's coming up on stage, and she's like, "Oh, this is BS. This is not gonna, and she sits down on the stage. Whatever. Let's, and then an hour later, she opens up her eyes and has no idea what just transpired in that last hour. Okay. And people are showing, her videos back on, on the phone. Like they were like, when they couldn't believe it, they couldn't, and it was an interesting case because even though I probably only had maybe 3 or 4 volunteers left, but you had that one, which was her, which turned out to be the star of the show. And, afterwards she came up and she's like, "What the hell just happened?" This is like, and that's kind of the rare exception to the rule that you have somebody that may be in resistance, but man, something clicked and, and they went with it.
I want to ask this and you can dodge it if you want. I want to ask, well, what kind of things did you have her do? I don't want you to give away your act or anything.
Oh no. You're just creating these different situations. You're giving them these suggestions where, it's things like, maybe they're feeling like, like they're on a beach, right? And they believe that they're on this, and they're laying back like they're on a beach and, the sun's, and then it's getting really hot and then it's getting like really cold. And now all of a sudden you're telling them to put their arms around each other, because they're shivering cold. And then you tell them to open up their eyes and all of a sudden somebody opens up their eyes and they've got their arms wrapped around this person next to them. And, they have no idea, what the heck is, going on. Or you might give them a suggestion that they're not able to, remember their name, and you ask them their name and they're like completely stumped. It's just,
Wow.
you're doing all these different things that basically just kind of is creating some different associations in their mind, or moving some associations around. So they're having a different experience. There was an example one time, and this was kind of an interesting, I had a woman on stage. She was a doctor. She was a medical doctor. And the suggestion I gave her was that her belly button was missing. And so now I gave different suggestions to different people, on the stage. When you open your eyes, you're going to think your belly button is missing. But I'm on down one end of the stage talking, to an individual that was having their own suggestion. Well, I can hear people giggling and, laughing. And then I look around and there's this woman that's a doctor. She's standing up. She's like lifting up her shirt and she's looking down and she's looking behind her. And I'm like, what's going on? And she goes, this is medically impossible, but my belly button is missing. And it was so interesting to see kind of the battle, if you will, between her conscious mind and what she knew was legitimate medical physiology versus what her subconscious mind, was telling her, was the case. And she's like, this is impossible, but my belly button is missing. And it was just kind of an interesting, thing to experience, especially when it's somebody like it's a medical doctor, right? Because you're seeing both sides of that, that perspective.
What is it like when she comes out of it? I could see someone being angry, embarrassed, having negative feelings towards you is what I'm trying to say. I could see that.
Well, here's the thing. First, when you experience, hypnosis, you really do, you feel very positive. You're getting, your body's filling up with dopamine and endorphins. So it's a very, very positive experience for people. And you feel good emotionally, mentally, physically. Now, the thing is too, we're doing silly stuff and we're doing goofy stuff on stage, but it's not, and there are some hypnosis shows out there that, have been, can be pretty embarrassing, to people. And it's like, I never wanted that to, be the case. People will do silly stuff and goofy stuff, but they're not going to be overly embarrassed. But the thing is too, is the kind of people that come up on stage. Like I had a guy, I think it was on one of the cruise ships one time. The guy came up, he said, well, you said people aren't going to be embarrassed. I said, correct. And he was not on the show. He was just somebody in the audience. He goes, well, don't you think some of the things that they were doing up there were, and I said, well, would you have gone up there and done that? And he goes, no, absolutely not. That would be embarrassing to me. I said, well, that would be, for you, but the people that came up on stage, they were completely comfortable with that. They didn't mind, they were like, all right, I'll go up and, I'll experience, this. So they had, a
they opted in.
Yeah. They opted in. And, again, it was nothing that was just, mortifying to somebody.
I want to ask you, there's a lot of similarities to meditation.
Yeah.
And I read my first book along those lines when I was about 15. It was Psycho-Cybernetics by, I think his name's Dr. Robert Maxwell. I screw it up all the time. But it was my introduction to meditation. And it's about mostly what I recall from it, I was in wrestling at the time, that if you visualize going through the sports training, that it has a real effect, nearly as good as the actual training. So, but it also taught me how to breathe, how to relax my muscles, starting my forehead, going all the way down to my toes, and all of that. How close is that to hypnosis?
Very close. They're sister states of mind. What is happening within your mind during hypnosis and meditation are the exact same thing. You're going from this beta brainwave state down into an alpha and theta brainwave state. And now, of course, the difference is, when I tell people, it's like, meditation is like you're turning the engine off, giving the engine a break, and then with hypnosis, you're turning the engine off, giving the engine a break, and maybe you're giving it a tune up and an oil change and, fitting it with some aftermarket parts. But yeah, everything that's happening mentally, emotionally, and physiologically are exactly the same between hypnosis and and meditation. So one, of course, but the thing is that, people feel a little bit more comfortable with the word meditation, maybe than they do with the word hypnosis, because hypnosis sounds like, oh, I'm going to, lose control.
Right.
I'm going to be subject to somebody else. But there, you've got the same things that are happening there.
And what I was wondering is, when you do corporate events, and how different I would imagine that would be from a public event. Are corporate events, are they often looking for a benefit, like a motivational factor, an inspirational thing? Or are they just looking for team building event?
Yeah, I mean, typically, yeah, a lot of the corporate events that I would have been doing, it's their their Christmas parties or their their yearly sales training event. So it's kind of both of those type of things. They're looking for entertainment, but then of course they're also looking for a way to how can we show people ways to tap into their mind and and to get motivated and that sort of thing. And the one thing that I do love about doing corporate events is the fact that like when you're on the cruise ship, nobody really knows each other, right? And then you'll hear people going, "Was that person a plant? Were they real?" But when you're doing a corporate event, people will come up and go, "Now I know hypnosis is real because I work next to that person every single day. There was no way they could fake that. There was no way that was made up. Holy cow, that was amazing."
That's interesting. Can you ever inadvertently cause negative harm to someone via hypnosis?
When the thing is that you want to make sure in the context of a hypnosis show, you want to make sure that all of the suggestions and everything that you are phrasing for people are done through a positive framework. And there have been some old school hypnosis shows where there's like a skit where somebody like takes off a belt, right, and they think it's a snake. I mean, there's things that you can do to create, fear in somebody or something like that. And again, that's the kind of stuff that, I want to avoid. I don't want that to, to be the case. You're not going to do, of course, let's say if it's a case where like you're doing the skit where, people are out at the beach or something, there may be one individual that has some horrible association, right, with the beach or the ocean or something like that. Something that probably wouldn't normally be typical, but as you're observing the people on, the stage, then that you can, avert that. I'll give you kind of an interesting, and didn't happen to me. It was, my buddy, the colleague that I first saw that became my mentor, my friend, and he was doing a show. And he had a guy on stage, what he would call the star of the show. This guy was participating in everything. I don't know if you can see a tail wagging back here or not, but my dog just walked in. Yeah,
I got the Charlie right over here. Sure.
So this guy was the star of the show. He was participating in everything, doing all of the skits. And then, as the finale of the show was building up, he told this guy, he says, "You're going to dance like Michael Jackson." And then, of course, he tells everybody to open their eyes. The music starts playing. Well, the guy wasn't doing anything. The guy was just sitting there, in the chair, not doing anything. And it wasn't really like a negative thing, but the guy just wasn't participating. So, my buddy was like, "That's really weird," because he was doing everything else. He's not doing this. After the show, my buddy wound up talking to the guy. Well, the guy was very religious, and whatever organization he believed or he belonged to, they just believed that dancing was not righteous. Dancing was bad. Public dancing was bad.
That's interesting.
So he wasn't, even though he was legitimately hypnotized, his subconscious programming, if you will, was that moral code that he had. He wasn't going to violate that. He just wasn't going to to dance. So that's just kind of an interesting example of how it can work with one individual relative to what might happen with somebody else.
No, it's very interesting that his, as you say, subconscious moral code overrides.
Yeah.
Even in hypnosis. Get along these lines. Can someone get stuck in hypnosis?
No. It's funny. That's kind of a myth, and it's never happened. And the only time you're going to see anything like that kind of happen remotely, it always seems to be, you might want to have some high school kid or university kid that wants to try to be in the spotlight and do something
Yeah.
to. So those are the things. You know, yeah, it's a legitimate question to ask. You know, can I get stuck? No. What would happen if I were to hypnotize somebody and then just walk away from them and leave them alone? They'll either fall asleep, like they're taking a nap, or they'll just kind of come out of it, right? And they'll be wide awake. But those, I usually have to emphasize that part when I'm doing it. Like if it's a high
Sure.
school or university show, you can't get stuck in hypnosis. And I don't really tell them that, to let them know it's not a thing. So if you come up here and try to fake that and make a big deal out of it,
Yeah.
that it's not gonna, it's not gonna work.
Right. There's a lot of questions, different places I want to go. I do want to get to your channel in a second here. I'm going to pull up your channel on my, because I think that there's different things to talk about as opposed to doing via stage, even one-on-one. You don't do one-on-one, do you?
I did initially. It wasn't my, it wasn't my passion. I like
You're a performer.
Yeah, I'm a performer in that regard, or kind of, an artist. If I'm doing it to help people, I love creating this, kind of this artistic content for the masses.
Okay, got you. And I do want to ask, where do you think hypnosis is going to go? Because in some ways it seems like we haven't even gotten near to tapping the potential. I mean, look at the things that you and I are talking about. I'm asking you such rudimentary questions. I think we should all know all of these things for the most part by now.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, well, there's a good book that I read a couple of years ago. It's called the Illustrated History of Hypnosis. Of course, I don't know why it's called illustrated, because there was like maybe 4 or 5 drawings in there, but it was a very comprehensive history of hypnosis. That was a fascinating read. And we started to become, of course, it dates back thousands of years, right? The ancient civilizations all had an understanding of what was going on, didn't necessarily maybe know exactly what it was all about. And then, of course, in the 1700s, it started to become a little bit more prominent in Europe, and then, of course, making its way through the 1800s up till now, where now we kind of understand what's going on. But the thing is that now, as a society, we're coming into a greater understanding about how to tap into the mind, and meditation is becoming a very more predominant, acceptable medium. And since they're both kind of the sister states of mind, the same thing, I'm seeing kind of this surge of people looking to be able to turn inward now, to be able to overcome their challenges and reduce stress, and and those sorts of things. And especially kind of in the tech world, where I live in Utah, it's called the Silicon Slopes, because we've got a ton of tech companies here. And I've done a bunch of shows and events for them, where you've got individuals that they're like, we're looking for an edge. How do we get into flow? How are we able to go above and beyond so we can get, greater ideas, feel more inspired, have more, more energy, and feel more relaxed and less stressed. So I'm seeing that we're coming back into this, this understanding and into a greater exploration within now. So I think we're heading in a very good direction, where it's becoming, more acceptable, and people are becoming more curious about it and willing to learn and practice more.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's really interesting when you think about how meditation has gone from woo-woo, like from the 70s or something, when we're watching Kung Fu. And, just kind of messing around with the idea of it. And hypnosis at that time would have been the sideshow act, the vaudeville kind of trick. And always wondering, is it real or something like that? I want to bring up your channel because I think it's very interesting. And what catches me right away is the consistency and the look of your thumbnails and your brand overall. How did you arrive at that?
It just started to kind of happen that way.
Okay.
That I think I mean, it wasn't that way. If you look back at my older videos, it was not that way in the beginning. And then it was, 2 or 3 years ago, I started to just come into, kind of the colors. I thought, well, a lot of my stuff I'm doing is like stuff, at night, like sleep hypnosis, because it became people were looking for stuff to fall asleep to, but then also have something that might be able to empower them, fall asleep,
Right.
and then have some changes. So I just kind of went with those blue, kind of those, those nighttime,
Makes sense.
colors. And, then of course it was a case of where I wanted to have the thumbnails maybe start to tell, a little bit of a story.
Mhm.
And, so, thumbnails are a very interesting thing on YouTube.
They're
They,
very important.
YouTube, they're very important. In fact, in your analytics, YouTube is able to let you know how well your thumbnail is performing. How many people have seen this thumbnail, and how many people that have seen the thumbnail come up click on the video. So yeah.
Now, also I'm looking at your times. Like all of these are 8 hours. So you go for the full
Yeah.
night. And most of the ones, now I could tell you I'm probably a very average, typical target audience for you and people like you, because it's how I got into the whole hypnosis thing. First of all, when I'm struggling with some insomnia, I'll go through short periods of dealing
Yeah.
with that. To find a good self-hypnosis video that will lead you down through a series of meditational exercises. And I find most will help you concentrate on your breath and then take you down the stairs or what have you. But it really works most of the time for me. And then that got me thinking, well, while I'm at it, and I'm telling you this, this is the rabbit hole. This is the funnel that your people go down. Well, while I'm at it, why don't I work on these limited beliefs that drive crazy?
Yeah.
And then there's somewhere I saw you had meeting your higher self.
Yeah.
You have that.
Yeah, that one. It's right down. Yeah, it's right down there at the on the bottom. Yeah. Right
Okay. There. And attract your soulmate.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Well, and here's the interesting thing. Now, first of all, starting with my content being 8 hours, it was interesting because I had a video that took off initially for sleep. So YouTube is all about subsets of subsets of subset. Let's really dial in this demographic. So people were looking to utilize, it was a sleep video that I had initially to fall asleep to. And then of course, I'm interested in doing more than just having people fall asleep. There's things that I want to, other interesting themes. So that, so I would figure, okay, well, if I can help people fall asleep, then I can speak to some of the issues and things that they're, that maybe they're looking to, to overcome, and of course I do all of those within these themes. Like this one, it's reality shifting is a kind of a popular subject matter, right now, and of course people tend to look at that in the more metaphysical sense, kind of in the law of attraction, right? Shifting,
so much,
reality.
It's so law of attraction. Yeah.
And of course, one of my popular videos is connecting with your spirit guides. Mm-hmm. So my philosophy is, okay, well, if somebody wants to shift their reality, if somebody wants to connect with their spirit guides, what's going on there? Clearly, they've got some struggles and some challenges that they're going on, within their life. They've got some goals that they want to achieve. There's some things that they want to overcome, some things that they want to improve. So if somebody were to talk to their spirit guide, they're looking probably for answers to everyday questions or everyday things that people deal with, or maybe they're dealing with anxiety and they deserve some, some confidence, some strength, on, typical everyday things that we, that we're all going through. Mm-hmm. So when you experience hypnosis, your mind can tell the difference between what's real and what's not. Right. So it's just like the woman, the doctor who believed that her belly button was missing, right? Yeah. Her mind was telling that. So if you hypnotize somebody and you're saying, okay, well, you're meeting your spirit guide, and your spirit guide is giving you courage and strength, and giving you energy and the ability to empower yourself to overcome all of these things. Well, then the mind's going to accept that as real. So I don't necessarily come from a space where you are literally talking to a spirit guide, but it comes from this painting this picture and creating this perspective where the mind believes that that's what the case is.
At worst, it's a placebo effect, correct?
Yeah, and essentially, yeah, you could say that it's a placebo effect, but the benefits are very real, because somebody's getting a hypnotic suggestion that says, hey, you know what, you feel courageous, and you feel strong, and you feel capable, and you know that you're able to accomplish your goals, and you're able to overcome whatever. So yeah, I just creating that situation for somebody, for their mind to believe that they're having an experience, even though the experience isn't real, the benefits and the outcome are real.
I totally get that. How about for me, I do online marketing, so every kind of graphic of every sort. So I got just a couple questions for you there. I was thinking about the production. Here's what I'm asking, totally direct. Where do you get your music that you put in the background so that it's copyright free and all of that?
Yeah, one of the there's a couple of I love Pond 5. Pond 5 is a place that you can get royalty free. You pay to have the rights, for the music. And there's some other meditation places that do make their music available for early on there was a couple of times I had some people compose stuff, and
really,
yeah,
that would be expensive. And what if you didn't quite like the way it came out? That could
there's a lot to go. So it's just much easier to go through like a place like Pond 5 or Envato Elements, some place where you're not going to get hung up on anything with copyrights and stuff like that, because it's available for everybody to utilize.
What are you using to do your thumbnails and banner art, stuff like that?
I just use Adobe. So
Photoshop.
Yeah. Actually, no, I use Adobe Express. It's just an online it's just an online
it's a streamlined version of that stuff.
Yeah.
I've not heard of that. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a super, it's got here's the funny thing is that like a lot of the stuff that I did, it was all kind of I kind of had to learn to do it,
Sure.
And then there's things that I've tried to farm out.
Done such a good job for not being a professional at it. That's why I've had to ask. Nobody else has asked you about that, huh? Your thumbnails.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I'm very hands-on, and there's things that I've tried to farm out, and it's like part of the passion for me, part of the enjoyment for me is that creative process. And of course, like when I was a kid, I learned I had the ability to edit. I had the natural instinct to be able to edit, and I was cutting on super 8mm film.
Right.
And then of course, obviously, as technology evolved, in fact, I remember in college the first time we saw somebody edit on a computer, we were like cavemen to fire. We could not believe that this.
I remember, yeah.
Those first times. So I wound up learning, to teach myself the technology as far as Final Cut Pro, and then of course Logic Pro. I use those Apple products, and I have tried to farm out editing my stuff to somebody else, and I just go, no, I enjoy that process, and I enjoy doing it that way.
Along the same lines, because when I pull something like that up as I'm going to sleep, I have it on a laptop on a nightstand over here, and I shut off the light, the monitor. And so I don't know what you got going on in the background. Do you have something going for 8 hours back there?
Yeah, the early ones, I did. And then of course, dark screen is a big pop. People are looking up for dark screen stuff. So I would have some videos that wouldn't even have any graphics. It was just, audio the whole time.
Okay.
And then typically what I do now though, is I might have, the graphic happened, and then I get to the part where I say, now close your eyes, and I'll dim the screen.
Okay.
But there's still a thing there. But of course, if people have, and it's one of those funny things because, you'll do something where people go, please make this a dark screen. We don't, we don't want images the whole time. And then I've created a dark screen one. And then there's people are going, why aren't there images here? We love the images. And it's just kind of funny.
Somebody's watching that for 8 hours.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Of course, yeah. I mean, I have YouTube Premium. If somebody's got YouTube Premium, then they can turn off their screen and it'll still play.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just shut off the monitor light. So I have a question that I'm not sure how to ask, and that I kind of alluded to it before, is about where do you think this is going in the future? Hypnosis still we seem a little bit naive about it, but I guess I'm asking that in a technological sense too. It seems like you're not peaked out yet as an online business with hypnosis, because you're still growing so quickly, but then I don't know what your thoughts are on Web 3.0 and then how that could change everything.
Yeah, it's interesting because now you see, is technology going to get to the point where we put on these glasses and we see a dot, right? We look at the dot in the glasses, and then all of a sudden we're information is now beamed into our head, or changes were made. I've wondered about that. Will technology somehow make the individual obsolete? That's a good question that I don't know, but we're still learning and how to do it ourselves now. So I'm just going to keep rolling with that all I can.
Okay. That's a good answer. Made us sidestep that a little bit, but no, I definitely feel that we're going to be merging with technology pretty soon within our lifetimes. And, it's probably know about Elon Musk and Neuralink soon going to be embedded in that. And that's going to be for the best of reasons, to help quadriplegics, or I think it's paraplegics, I should say, that would help them walk again, or people with Alzheimer's remember things. I mean, that's how it's going to get started. But as soon as you can help increase an accountant's math skills or something, analyze their calculators.
Well,
real.
I think that there's a lot of things that early humanity understood about our biology and our interaction with the universe on a quantum level that maybe they didn't necessarily know what the quantum level was, that, maybe we're going to try to duplicate with technology, but in reality, we all have an ability within us biologically that could actually allow us to do what we're trying to create technology. To do.
It's something like a forgotten talent, because instinct that we kind of buried.
Yeah, I think and if you look at the pineal gland, for instance, the pineal gland has got piezoelectric properties, akin to being able to transmit and receive like a radio signal.
Wow.
So, they're finding this out.
I've heard the concept, the theory that we used to be telepathic.
Yeah.
Many, many, many years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like with the pineal gland, it's like when you're watching a flock of birds, and they're all able to move in the same direction, they've got this, connection between them. And it's like, we had these things within us, as humans, that we began to start outthinking ourselves, right? Because it all became, it became, we became more thinking oriented and then less energetically and emotionally,
I think there's a lot to that, to what you were talking about with the bird formation. And there's this theory called transference amongst all species, and they use the birds as here's a great example. Many years ago, like in the 50s or whatever, in Britain, or maybe the 40s, when the milkman would put the milk bottles out on the front steps with the little foil caps on them. For years and years and years, they did that. Then one day, a little bird found out that he could peck his beak into there and get the milk. And within a matter of a month or two, all birds everywhere were doing that.
Yeah.
So it's that same transference. And I know they didn't hold a town hall meeting.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think as we're kind of beginning to understand a little bit more about quantum entanglement, little bit, but we'll realize, science goes, we know it's real, we know it happens, not quite sure how it works yet, but so I think we're beginning to understand things on a deeper level, that'll all of a sudden be like, oh, okay, this is kind of who we are in the universe.
There's something else I've been wanting to look into more, and that is totally along the lines of what you do with hypnosis, but the link between the consciousness and the dream state. We go to, we sleep for 7-8 hours a night and go on these wacky adventures and forget most of them, and then just wake up and say, well, that wasn't real. It was just a dream.
Yeah.
There's something more to it than just that.
Yeah. There's
a link to hypnosis there too, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you're bouncing around between, these alpha, theta, and the delta brainwave states. And there are things in our subconscious mind that, a lot of people talk about, there's things that we're working, just clear stuff out, clean stuff out. But then it's time. It's like, are there things that are being communicated, to us? And, it's weird because I've never been one to have really bizarre kind of out there dreams. You see somebody like that, they have a dream and, on the movies or TV, and it's really bizarre. I've never been one to have those types of dreams, but then it just seems that the last few years, the more that I've gotten into the meditation, the more I focus, some of the things I focus on, I've been having some really interesting dreams that I'm like, what is this trying to tell me? And then to the case, and this was even weirder. There was a few months ago that, I had a few dreams about some people that I knew from my past, childhood or early in my adult life, that there were some weird things going on with them in this dream. And, I just reached out to them and say, hey, craziest thing. I just had a dream and wanted to check in and say hi. And then it turns out that there was something going on with them,
I totally believe
their life.
Yeah, our wavelengths cross so much.
Yeah.
In ways that we don't quite understand.
And then it kind of got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to dream about anybody because this is just getting too weird. I don't want to be the person that's all of a sudden getting messages for people.
And a few weeks back, I'm trying to, not a doctor, Bob Ginsberg. He's on the Netflix special, Surviving Death. And he researches near-death experiences. And where was I going with that? What did you just say? And as he says, so we talked a lot about mediums and stuff. And most mediums will tell you we all have a bit of that in us. Yeah. And it's just about clearing yourself and learning how to tap into trusting your instincts in that way. I think you're mentioning about starting to do meditation, and all of a sudden you're having these dreams. I think that you're kind of like clearing the pipes a little bit and just letting that go through.
Yeah, there's a lot of the studies and say that's one of the things that the subconscious mind is doing, is just cleaning stuff out.
Well, with that, I have all your links that you've shared. That if you want to say, for people that are just listening, do you want to say where you could be found at?
The biggest platform obviously is YouTube. Just look up John Moyer on YouTube, or you can type in, John Moyer Hypnosis. It's pretty obvious I'm not the John Moyer who's the bassist for the heavy metal band Disturbed. That's the other most famous John Moyer. If you see the guy with long hair and a bass, that is not me. Or my website, johnmoyer.com. That's got the, links to all of my social media platforms right there. So
hey, that's awesome. What a great conversation. Really appreciate it. And guys, go to over50startingover.com, sign up for this, and get everything in your email box as it happens. All right, John. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Barry. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks.